Because it is not a pitcher trying to survive 6 innings. It is not a two-way player managing his workload. What we are watching is something that has not existed in the history of professional baseball, a man who hit 40 home runs last season, signed the largest contract in sports history, and is now posting a 0.00 ERA while quietly, methodically, dismantling every record Babe Ruth left behind. The legends are not just impressed. They are confused. One former Cy Young winner, after watching Ohtani's latest outing, 6 innings, 0 earned runs, 0 margin for doubt, simply said, "He's just naturally like that. He's a monster." But here is what that statement gets wrong. There is nothing natural about what Shohei Ohtani is doing. Every single thing about his performance in 2025 is manufactured. Built. Engineered with a precision that most professional athletes cannot even imagine, let alone execute. And once you understand the machine behind the myth, the 0.00 ERA stops being shocking. It starts being inevitable. 6 innings. 0 earned runs. Commanding fastball. Devastating splitter. Pinpoint slider on the corner at 3-2 counts. On paper, it reads like a good start from a good pitcher. But context is everything in baseball, and the context surrounding this particular outing is what sent shockwaves through the sport. Ohtani did not just pitch well. He pitched with the kind of composure that veteran starters spend 15 years trying to develop. He worked ahead in counts. He changed speeds with surgical timing. He never once let a difficult at-bat carry into the next one. When runners reached base, he did not panic. He simply executed. Ground ball. Fly out. Strike out. The broadcast booth went quiet at certain moments, not because nothing was happening, but because what was happening was almost too clean to commentate on. And when it was over, when he walked off that mound having surrendered nothing, the number that appeared on the scoreboard next to his name was the same number that has been there all season. 0.00. An ERA that does not exist in the real world of Major League Baseball. An ERA that belongs in a video game set to the lowest difficulty. An ERA that, at this stage of the season, has placed Shohei Ohtani in a conversation that nobody, not analysts, not historians, not even his most devoted supporters, fully anticipated. The Cy Young Award conversation. To understand why Ohtani's 2025 pitching run is so historically significant, you have to go back to a name that baseball has treated as untouchable for over a century. Babe Ruth. Before Ruth became the Sultan of SWAT, before the home runs and the mythology and the called shot, he was a pitcher. And not just any pitcher. Ruth was one of the most dominant left-handed starters of his era, compiling a record that baseball historians have pointed to for decades as proof of his all-around greatness. Ruth's pitching legacy was never seriously threatened, because no player who could also hit at an elite level ever came close to the mound performance required to touch it. The two-way experiment, when teams occasionally tried it, always collapsed under the weight of reality. Pitching is too demanding. Hitting is too demanding. The human body, even a professionally trained one, was simply not built to sustain both at the highest level. That was the consensus. That was the accepted truth. And then Shohei Ohtani spent the better part of a decade methodically proving that consensus wrong. When Ohtani surpassed Ruth's record, quietly, between innings, the way he does most things, the reaction from the baseball world was not a roar. It was more like a slow exhale. A collective release of breath from people who had been holding it, waiting to see if this moment would actually arrive. Historians reached for words. Analysts reached for comparisons. Most of them came up empty. Because there is no comparison. That is the uncomfortable truth at the center of the Ohtani story. Every time baseball tries to contextualize what he is doing, it runs out of context. Every time historians try to find a parallel, the parallel breaks down within 2 sentences. He has moved beyond the reach of analogy. Let's talk about what a 0.00 ERA actually demands from a pitcher, because the number sounds simple, and the reality is anything but. 0 earned runs means 0 mistakes that cost you. It does not mean 0 base runners. It does not mean 0 hard contact. It means that in every situation where a run was about to score, something, a pitch, a fielder, a decision, prevented it. Consistently. Over multiple outings. Against major league hitters who are paid millions of dollars specifically to make pitchers pay for their mistakes. Maintaining a 0.00 ERA into any meaningful portion of a major league season requires a combination of stuff, command, composure, and fortune that almost never aligns for any pitcher for any extended stretch. For Ohtani, it has aligned. And the reason it has aligned is not luck. His fastball velocity this season has drawn attention from pitching analysts who track spin rates and movement profiles for a living. The pitch is not just fast, it has the kind of carry through the zone that makes it behave differently than its velocity suggests. Hitters who have faced it describe the experience of thinking they have timed it correctly, swinging where logic tells them to swing, and watching the ball arrive somewhere else entirely. His splitter, which has always been his signature weapon, has become something genuinely different in 2025. The depth is sharper. The deception is earlier. Hitters who have studied it on video, who have prepared specifically for it, are still swinging through it in critical counts. And then there is the slider, the pitch that does not always make headlines but quietly does damage in the situations where the game is actually won or lost. 2 strikes. Runner on second. Left-handed hitter trying to protect. Ohtani throws the slider, and it ends the inning. That sequence has played out enough times this season that it no longer surprises his catcher. It surprises everyone else. Here is what gets lost in the highlight clips and the ERA graphics and the record-breaking announcements. Shohei Ohtani does not arrive at the ballpark and perform. He arrives at the ballpark having already performed, in the training room, in the film session, in the meal he ate that morning, in the sleep schedule he protected the night before, in the preparation routine that began the moment his last outing ended. People who have worked around Ohtani describe a player who treats the space between games with the same seriousness that most players reserve for the games themselves. He is not casual about recovery. He is not approximate about nutrition. He does not guess about preparation. He studies opposing lineups with a specificity that goes beyond knowing who hits what pitch in which zone. He studies tendencies. He studies timing patterns. He studies how a hitter's approach changes with a runner on base versus the base is empty, with the game tied versus a lead, early in the count versus 2 strikes. By the time he stands on the mound in the first inning, he has already faced every hitter in that lineup dozens of times in his mind. The actual confrontation is almost a formality. This is not a boast. This is not mythology constructed after the fact. This is the reported reality from people who have seen his preparation up close, and it explains something that pure talent cannot explain: why Ohtani gets better in the situations where other pitchers get worse. In high-leverage moments, runners in scoring position, late innings, full counts against the middle of a dangerous lineup, his performance does not dip. It often improves. The composure does not crack. The pitch selection does not become conservative or fearful. He executes. That does not happen by accident. That happens because he has rehearsed those moments so thoroughly that pressure cannot find a foothold. When seasoned baseball voices call Ohtani a monster, the word lands differently than it would for any other player. Monster is what you say when your vocabulary runs out. It is what you reach for when the numbers are real but the reality feels impossible. It is an acknowledgement that the speaker has encountered something they cannot fully process using the frameworks they have spent a lifetime building. Former Cy Young winners have spoken this season about watching Ohtani pitch with something that resembles discomfort, not because they dislike him, but because what he is doing challenges assumptions they have held about the limits of the position. Pitching a Cy Young caliber season requires everything a player has. It leaves nothing. The idea that a player could be doing this while also being one of the most dangerous hitters in the National League is not something their experience has equipped them to absorb easily. One veteran analyst put it this way: you spend your whole career learning what's possible and what isn't. And then Ohtani comes along and the categories stop working. That is the most honest assessment available. The categories stop working. So where does this go? The Cy Young Award is voted on by baseball writers who cover the American and National Leagues. The criteria, while never officially defined, typically weighs ERA heavily, alongside strikeout numbers, wins, innings pitched, and the broader narrative of a pitcher's season. Ohtani's 0.00 ERA is the headline. But the full picture is more compelling than any single number. His strikeout rate is elite. His walk rate is controlled. His innings pitched are accumulating at a pace that puts him on track for the kind of workload that Cy Young voters respect. And the narrative, the two-way player, the record breaker, the man pitching at this level while simultaneously threatening to become one of the most productive hitters in the league, is unlike anything the award has ever been asked to consider. There will be resistance. There always is with Ohtani. The argument will be made that combining his hitting value with his pitching value gives him an unfair advantage in the public conversation, that Cy Young voters should evaluate only the pitching. That argument is reasonable, and some voters will apply it. But if the pitching, evaluated entirely on its own terms, continues at this level, if that ERA holds, if those performances keep arriving, if he keeps walking off the mound having surrendered nothing, the argument becomes very difficult to sustain. Here is where we arrive, in 2025, watching Shohei Ohtani chase a Cy Young Award while holding a 0.00 ERA and standing on the other side of Babe Ruth's record. The question is not whether he is the best player in baseball. That conversation ended some time ago. The question is something harder. Something that baseball has never had to seriously ask before. Is there a ceiling? Every great player has a ceiling. Every great career has a moment where the body begins to negotiate, where age begins to collect what it is owed, where the gap between preparation and performance starts to narrow. That is not pessimism. That is the honest reality of professional sports. But Ohtani, at this stage of his career, on this contract, in this city, pitching these games and posting these numbers, does not look like a player approaching a ceiling. He looks like a player who has not yet shown us his floor. The legends are astonished. The historians are searching for words. The Cy Young voters are watching very carefully. And Shohei Ohtani is simply preparing for his next start.